Based on the text, how would the author of text 1 most likely respond to the study's findings mentioned in text 2? Text 1. Mycoprotein is a fungal biomass that can be eaten as an alternative to meat. Studies of the environmental impact of its manufacture generally agree it is lower than that of beef and closer to that of chicken or pork. But the expense of producing mycoprotein restricts its availability to a few countries with post-industrial economies. Knowing that cost reductions would expand access to mycoprotein, biochemists are exploring solutions, such as a cheaper substrate to feed the mycoprotein as it grows. Text 2. Cattle farming is a principal cause of global deforestation, and a study by Florian Hoopendorf and his colleagues found that replacing 20% of beef consumption worldwide with consumption of mycoprotein would cut deforestation by half, if accomplished over the next 30 years. However, this would likely involve only a small change in agricultural water consumption, since water once dedicated to raising cattle would be diverted to raising crops instead. So option choice A says, by emphasizing that since agricultural water consumption will remain static in the event of replacing beef consumption with mycoprotein consumption, an effort must be made to substitute mycoprotein for chicken and pork in diets as well. This is incorrect because, for one, the water consumption remains static in the event of replacing beef consumption with mycoprotein consumption isn't really mentioned in text 1, so the author of text 1 wouldn't emphasize this point. And secondly, it says in text 1 that the environmental impact of its manufacture generally agree it is lower than that of beef and closer to that of chicken or pork. So replacing beef with mycoprotein would reduce the environmental impact, and that would the environmental impact of mycoprotein is closer to that of chicken or pork. So replacing chicken and pork with mycoprotein wouldn't make sense. It would be better to substitute beef with mycoprotein. So A is incorrect. B. By asserting that the development of a more inexpensive substrate for mycoprotein would contribute to the goal of decreasing worldwide deforestation over time. This seems to be the correct answer because text 1 highlights how researchers are looking to find a cheaper substrate to feed the mycoprotein as it grows, and finding a cheaper substrate would make this mycoprotein more inexpensive. And if that occurs, then cattle farming, which is a principal cause of global deforestation, mentioned in text 2, and it said that replacing 20% of beef consumption with consumption of mycoprotein will cut deforestation by half. So text 1 would elaborate on text 2 by highlighting how developing cheaper substrates to feed the mycoprotein would make it more inexpensive, and thus it would be able to replace 20% of beef consumption and thereby reduce deforestation. So overall, B seems to be the correct answer. C. By noting that most people would be more likely to use mycoprotein as a substitute for chicken or pork in their diets than as a substitute for beef. This is incorrect because nothing in text 1 mentions anything about how people would be more likely to use mycoprotein as a substitute for chicken or pork in their diets than as a substitute for beef. The taste or preferences for people are not mentioned in text 1, so therefore C is incorrect. D. Pointing out that some countries are responsible for greater deforestation than others, and thus to have any significant effect on the environment will have to replace more than 20% of their beef consumption with mycoprotein. This is incorrect because nothing in text 1 highlights the deforestation in countries, and it doesn't highlight anything about how they will have to replace more than 20% of their beef consumption with mycoprotein. Therefore, because the author doesn't mention any of these points in text 1, D is incorrect. And the correct answer is B.